Hey, everybody, I'm very excited to offer you this conversation with Courtney Tyler. I do want to give you a trigger warning. Several potentially painful topics are spoken about in this episode, including a graphic telling of a suicide attempt and childhood sexual abuse. We leave these topics in because of their compassionate potential and the healing context in which they are woven. And if you are experiencing suicidal thoughts or are in a crisis, please reach out immediately to trained professionals. There are some international resources linked in the description. With that, I hope you have a beautiful experience listening or watching, and I give you the episode with Courtney Tyler. And one of the questions that I really love asking you, and I just saw it on your Instagram from another podcast or something. Can you share the experience where you were visited by Amanita Muscaria? Is that something you can share? That sounds so amazing.
I didn't know what you were going to say because actually this morning I was sharing a story about being visited by this owl that I'd called in. I thought maybe I was going to share that this morning, but
I would love to hear that as well. Yeah,
that was a really good story.
Yeah.
But when I was visited by Amanita Muscaria, I guess it's become something that has truly changed my life in 1,000 ways. And it isn't that perhaps there's a perception from outside when I teach and talk and share so much about Amanita Muscaria that it's something I'm taking in a shamanic way a lot often. And in fact, it's not really the case. But I do eat the mushroom as food, and I do apply it to my body for pain relief, and I do interact with it in many ways. But that is one way that I interact with it less often. So I like to say that because I actually get so many emails and messages every day of people who'd like to shamanically work with it, and it's not as much where I teach from. But I was so moved by my experiences with this mushroom, and they truly have changed my life on every level. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. It's something that always I find a bit shocking and exciting, my introduction to this mushroom and how all the ways it's kind of brought me places. I guess first came across this mushroom when I was looking for some porcini mushrooms in a Christmas tree farm next to my house, and they grow side by side. They have a beautiful symbiotic relationship and often grow under the same trees and mycorrhizal partners. So where you see one, you often see the other. And I was so taken by the beauty, like it stops you in your tracks, and it's so gorgeous. It's red, bright red with the white spots, and its beautiful skirt, its veil. And I remember at first experiencing, I suppose, what isn't uncommon, but a little bit of fear or trepidation because so many people, the story is retold over and over how dangerous this mushroom is, and it's very misrepresented. So my first feeling may have been awe and respect and appreciating its beauty, but also a little bit of fear of the unknown. And it took me some time before I had the experience that it came to visit me. But eventually, as I became closer and closer to this mushroom, I was processing a large amount for the first time for medicine, and slicing the fresh caps and drying them and turning them into tincture. And, you know, I don't actually think that it's the effect of having touched a lot, because when I work with it and make tinctures with it, it's often the case that I'm touching hundreds of them, maybe. This only happened to me the one time, but that night, after I was first welcomed it into the house and was working with it and making medicine, that night my dreams were visited by Amanita Muscaria, and she called to me in a way that, I don't know, I felt this kind of motherly like energy, but tough love, and also a real call to respect her power, and maybe an invitation to share her with the world on some level. And at that time, it was still very new to me, but there's only a few plants or mushrooms that I've felt have come to me in that way. And I often actually don't remember my dreams, but this one really felt very present when I woke, and it was a beautiful, beautiful encounter. And I do think that as I have worked more and taught more about this mushroom in particular, um, now around the world, and it's been so exciting to have these invitations to travel and speak and share about it. Um, it is constantly provoking situations in which I would feel fear or be triggered by, like public speaking on stage is a real, like, I never believed in a million years I would want or be able to do such a thing. I think I felt such a almost strangulation of fear, and to express myself through much of my life, I credit Amanita Muscaria with with bringing me over and over the challenges, such as that and many other, to come out of my comfort zone and to grow.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's the story in a nutshell.
Yeah. Sometimes dreams are not quite dreams. That's at least my sense of it. And this sounds like one of those dreams that wasn't a bit more than a dream.
Hmm.
And you say you don't often remember your dreams. Do you remember any details? Like, was there a visionary aspect or an audible aspect or anything, sensory or?
I don't think there's often sound in my dreams, now that you mention it.
Hmm.
Um, but I think it's more maybe the way that plants and mushrooms might communicate with us is through intuition and the feeling and a sense inside. So I don't think that when I felt the communication that it was with words,
Hmm.
which is I've never realized before. So that's a lovely question.
Hmm.
Um, I felt a lot of emotion, and I felt the communication or the message maybe. Um, yeah.
Hmm. Super cool. Yeah, the image that it draws up in me is that, see, I think some people, some humans, they are, yeah, they're drawn to that, and it almost sounds, not to be, I mean it in a beautiful way, like an enchanted forest,
Mm,
and that plants do speak to people. I have a dear friend, who, well, you don't know him, I think, but Martijn, and he's also in that kind of shamanic path. I say also, but he is a bit in that realm,
mhm,
and I think he had a similar experience of really experiencing plants speaking to him. Yeah, and why not? Why not in your dreams when we're most receptive, perhaps? So I don't
mhm.
know, but yeah, thanks for telling that story. Um, so yeah, who are we? People probably know enough about me, but how would you introduce yourself? I can just say what I've seen. Of course, I know you, but
Actually, you know me, but you don't. We've never met in
I
person.
exactly.
A nice way
That's
of knowing
true.
each other.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
unusual almost because actually we
yeah.
know each other quite well. I would love to hear
Yes,
first how you might introduce me and say that we know each
yeah.
other, and then I'll share.
Okay, yeah. Well, personally, we met on an NVC course. It was either my first or my second NVC course, and I probably took 6 or 7 NVC courses that were all 3 months long or something. And I remember us just sharing everything. I was really opening up to you, and you were, I believe, really opening up to me, and it was feeling really close, and super meaningful, super moving, and scary sometimes. And yeah, I believe we were there for each other as empathy buddies for, I don't know how long it was. Maybe it was up to half a year or a year or something.
Mhm,
And then life happened in different directions. So that's kind of the personal thing. And and I know, of course, that, so as you said yourself on your website, you're a lifelong forager. And then I added myself, you're a speaker, you're an educator, you're a mentor. You describe yourself as a proud member of the Association of Foragers. And yeah, as I get it, you have a whole life that you're going to tell us about, hopefully. But, fungi, or however you say that, foraging, herbal medicine, edible plants. So yeah, this whole field, so my personal stuff, and then, kind of your calling, which
mhm,
from what I've already heard is super deep and really personal and very intuitive and just amazing. So how would you add or correct or
mhm.
subtract any of that, maybe?
Thank you. Yeah, I think we met each other on that MVC course during a particularly challenging time in my life, and yours too, I think. But it was COVID, and it was for me the start of divorce, and yeah, really times that rocked my world. And it was so meaningful to me to have a new language to connect to myself. Like that truly did change my world as well, as much as or more than Amanita Muscaria. But the introduction of NVC into my world gave me a language and a self-reflection and infinite challenges to grow. And it was so moving for me to share that with you and to connect and share our most intimate stories that maybe we could do much better because we hadn't met each other in person. And yeah, so um, as you mentioned, foraging wild food is a big part of my life. I wouldn't say I've done it all my life. It's something that came to me later in my life. And I'm 48, which I was talking to someone the other day. Sometimes shocks me to say out loud. I don't feel like that inside. I feel exactly the same as I did when I was, I don't know, 20, 25. Or maybe there's a timelessness. Does age matter at all? But um, I wish kind of that I had grown up in a world or a life where my parents or my family or my grandparents might have taken me to the forest and taught me these plants and mushrooms. But it came to me later in life, and it is something that brings me a great sense of connection to the earth and the seasons and to my body and to procuring food and medicine from the earth and everywhere around me, and to share that with other people makes me feel very alive and so grateful. I've had many incarnations of my life and many things I've done for work. I've always been self-employed, almost always, and made my own way in the world. I think I'm non-conventional, and I don't always fit into the boxes of what it feels like society wants and what most expect, and that's always felt a little bit lonely. And somehow, through learning more about plants, as one by one the world started to open up to me in this way, it feels like a really exciting hobby and passion and career, because I'm never going to get to the end of it. And there's always more infinite ways to learn how to prepare a dandelion or a nettle, or how to, yeah, make formulations or herbal medicine. And uh, I don't know, adding wild things into my ferments like sauerkraut or kimchi, or making wild drinks. But sharing these things with people is key. It also is something I spend a lot of time doing alone. It's a big part of my life and my lifestyle. But the part that, I don't know, I suppose that human interaction, I didn't always feel a great sense of community. And I always, I felt that loneliness. Maybe that I was always outside looking in through much of my life. And as the gifts of NVC, some of them were this ability to look inside and take responsibility for the things that maybe before I externalized and thought that was everyone else's fault.
Mm.
But all of that has led to a real sense of, I don't know, something very precious that I don't have words for, but that's helped me grow in ways that I now can connect much more deeply with people. And
Mm.
I'm so grateful for that. I know very well how lonely it felt when I didn't have the same skills and I was often misunderstood.
Yeah. Do you remember, you said that you don't have, or right now maybe the words are not there, but do you remember maybe a specific moment or shift of insight or clarity that you had with nonviolent communication?
Yeah. I felt really fortunate to also have attended a couple of Yoram's visits to Ireland to teach NVC weekends, and as well as doing the online work with him. I suppose, let me think for a second what felt like the biggest shift. I think the biggest thing was, sorry, helps me to close my eyes sometimes to think a little more clearly.
Please,
Um,
yeah.
when I feel triggered by a situation, when I feel upset, I'm very passionate. I feel things very deeply. I really don't like labels, but I was diagnosed, with autism and ADHD. And it helps me to have that lens through which to better understand myself and the language around that of how I burn out socially when there's too much stimulation and noise and people. And it's helped me have a framework to better understand myself. So I suppose that my emotions might have run me for a ride a lot of my life when I wasn't able to name them or to understand them and understand that they were mine and my triggers. So when I get upset by something, now it's been very life-changing to own that and maybe take a pause and to look within and um, yeah, I guess a practice in live. This is a very NVC thing to do, which I don't do ever on video. But like right now, when I pause and I find it hard to take a full breath right now, my chest can get really constricted and I can feel so, maybe a reminder of stepping back in time, although it still happens. That a moment might overwhelm me through emotions or fears. And I think that there's so much value in being able to name these things and to the vulnerability in naming that with someone else. Rather than before, I think the masking would have been that I'd start to feel ashamed right now. I'd start to feel all this emotion right here and it'd be stuck. And maybe I'd start crying even. I think I cried endless tears that I never had words for. I just thought these tears would never end. And they always came in moments that didn't feel like I would have really liked not to have had them. And I think that a lifetime of those tears through much of my life was a representation of how bottled up and constricted I was. And people might have seen whatever they saw from outside. There were probably, I think I heard judgments of, was I self-centered or arrogant, or was I, if I was being quiet, or was I too emotional, too much, all these things that just caused me to be more and more quiet and go more inward. And I think that the vulnerability and strength in naming what one's feeling, what I feel when I say that and share that, it brings such greater connection mostly to, I don't know, I feel a sense of relief. Maybe to be heard or to be seen is very powerful. And I don't think I felt that most of my life. So I think you asked me for one moment. I'm kind of long answer here. But I think that was the greatest gift of NVC for me, was to kind of feel and give some space to what's happening inside me and to practice sharing that vulnerability. It has transformed my life and my ability to connect to other people. And I'm so grateful for that because, I said loneliness a couple of times. I had a tough childhood, and then that combined with this sense of being misunderstood most of my life and not having the words or language I do now. So I'm, really something about that was the most transformational thing for me.
Yeah. Thank you. It's so simple, right? To name your feelings and have somebody hear them and maybe reformulate or just simply say, I'm sad. Oh, you're sad. And maybe with some more emotion, but that's just so powerful and something that's just almost not done at all.
Simple and very difficult, right? Simple and the easy things aren't always, simple things aren't always easy, but yes, it is so easy to say that.
Yeah.
And the practice of doing it felt very scary to me, but I'm not always great at it. But when I'm able to do that, it's brought such depth to my life.
Yeah. And you also mentioned Yoram's workshops that you're happy. Where did you go to his workshops actually? Which countries?
He had a couple in Ireland that I was really fortunate to attend. And I visited him once in Holland for a private session as my marriage was under massive duress just before divorce. And it was and to be able to work with him in that way, one-to-one. And oh my God, just actually, if I might go on about that for another moment. I remember when he walked into the room for the first time, when I first met him in the first moments, and going, what the fuck? what's he doing over there in the corner? He's doing something really odd. He's like jumping up and down, and as he introduced himself, and he did this in a very Yoram way, and he named how he was feeling, and I remember feeling uncomfortable and embarrassed and like, oh God, what's he doing? And like so much judgment, so much discomfort, and thinking, I've never met someone like this. What is going on? And as he continued to speak and as he continued to share, it rocked me on every level in the most beautiful way. And yeah, someone who lives this practice. I don't know anyone who does that more than Yoram. So your interview that you had with him was really beautiful to listen to. There's
Mm.
something about him that I'm sure has impacted so many humans on this earth. And yeah.
Yeah, he's amazing, and I completely agree. And it actually is exactly the experience I had, exactly. But then with um, another teacher, Oriane, who I don't know who will be listening, but it's fine because my very first basic course was with Oriane, also from his school, and I think she was the one who initially dragged him into NVC in the distant past. But the first few minutes I was like, oh my god, this person is just talking about their feelings, and bleh, I was like, this is horrible. And then half an hour later, I was like, this is amazing. It was really, what a change. And it is very confronting. I guess that's the thing, right? Just super confronting to see somebody speaking about their feelings and my needs, and I'm vulnerable and blah, blah, blah. And what conditioning we have, or most of us have, to not only not do that, but then to really judge people who do it. Well, it's one of the
Exactly.
most healthy things you can do in communication. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you for that. So, you mentioned earlier that sometimes when you're in a podcast or an interview, of course, people always want to talk about mushrooms, or of course, that is what you're known for. You speak to thousands of people. You have literally hundreds of 5-star reviews on your Google page related to this work. But I have some questions, but maybe can I flip the script and ask you, what would you like to talk about? I can give you, something about your life, or something that you also do but people don't ask you about, or something that excites you in the moment. What is something that comes up?
Oh, juicy question. Yeah, I think what I said to you before we started this was that I was a little bit excited because I think that with your experience in MVC and your questions and our intimate knowledge of each other, I was kind of excited that this could go directions that are maybe outside the norm, because I'm often invited to speak about mushrooms, and of course I could talk until the end of time, which is why I'm so passionate about it and it excites me so much. And mushrooms I attribute to my robust health and well-being, my health experiences. For example, I suffered really severe hay fever and allergies most of my life. My beautiful dog is here beside me, Reishi, and Reishi mushroom in particular um, has amazed me endlessly. The support it's given me taking it as medicine, especially my allergies are gone. A lifetime of allergies that were, just so oppressive. Have you had allergies? They just would, for me, my
Yeah.
experience of an allergic attack, which were really regular, would have been like, I'm usually operating at quite a high level of energy often. I might go straight from 100% have an allergy attack uh, straight down to 5%. And so just like this foggy head, like cotton wool in my brain, and I can't think clearly, and I just need to sleep. And like from my school years onwards, like I was in trouble in detention every day after school because I slept through school, because
Mm.
actually I was taking antihistamines that knocked me out. And instead of like
Oh my
having some
god.
understanding or a better solution, I honestly could not stay awake, and I fell asleep on my desk. And actually, I just much of that period of my life was very painful and challenging, but that was like,
Yeah.
yeah, really unhelpful thing to look back on and go, I was actually drugged and could not stay
Yeah.
awake.
And
You
then
know,
punished for the effects of the drug.
absolutely. Yeah.
Jesus.
I was always in trouble, actually. And I'm a very good girl. I
Yeah.
don't know, like whether this is ADHD and the always being misunderstood. And, I ask all these questions because I so deeply want to understand what people are saying. And I want to understand deeply what they mean. And often that comes across as, I'm questioning them because I might not believe what they say, or
Yeah.
I don't know, it offends people, and I just have felt so misunderstood and so in trouble for much of my life. But I'm happy to say that, if I shared a little bit about why mushrooms are so exciting and fascinating to me, um, one example is the reprieve of allergies that severe as I take Reishi 2 to 3 times a day during allergy season or before, or during an acute attack. Gone, no symptoms. Like, and instead of the antihistamines, which were masking my symptoms and, not helping get to the root of the problem, which was probably, gut dysbiosis. And I had antibiotics over and over and over as a child that really ruined my gut flora. I believe that for me, my studies, which studied a lot of naturopathy and health and herbal medicine, I think that that's kind of where that and a lot of trauma in my childhood, contributed to these health conditions, which felt really oppressive and challenging. And, I still struggle with my moods. I've always been someone who goes up and down a lot and feel things so deeply that it's a bit painful and challenging sometimes for good and for bad, or a bit exhausting. It can kind of take a lot of life force to feel life so deeply. Mushrooms really bring me to they help support me in a way that makes me feel more stasis, more calm, more status quo. And that's exactly the way they work. Medicinal mushrooms often are said to stimulate or improve our I guess stimulate our immune system. But actually, it's not exactly the case, because what my immune system needed wasn't more stimulation. It was more, my immune system was overreacting. It was overactive. It was too efficient. So what mushrooms do, whether you're struggling with feeling really run down and you're succumbing to infection or illness, you need a boost. And if you have allergies or autoimmune conditions, you need your immune system to settle down a little bit. And that's what mushrooms do. They literally modulate our immune system. And that's so valuable. And I feel that on many more levels, besides just allergies, they've contributed to my personal journey to well-being. And whether that's psychedelic mushrooms and psilocybin or other entheogenic experiences I've had through my life with iboga, or iboga was the biggest one. I didn't even know about it before I took it, to realize, the most powerful psychedelic in the world. Wow. It brought me all kinds of places to explode my brain, and the traumas, and very challenging. Definitely brought me to the brink of life and death. Literally.
Can you share more about that? Because I've done a bit of iboga, but never like a full dose. It scares the hell out of me to consider, but it also is very intriguing. Can you share your experience?
Yeah, I can try. And that's something that I have never shared publicly, but I'd love to try and find the words. The thing is, like, for these, I'm sure from these experiences of entheogens and psychedelics, very hard to put them into words. And also, it's almost like story time, because there's so many stories I'd love to share with you, like my experiences in the Amazon jungle and curanderos up in the mountains, actually the ayacha up in the mountains in Quechua land in the Andes Mountains in Ecuador. The shaman I met there, and the way the curandero, what he did to me, it's such a story. And my time with my time also with ayahuasca in the jungle. But this iboga story, I was in Mexico. And somehow I was thinking, I was very ignorant to what iboga was. It's a African root. And I thought, maybe it's toad medicine. I was confusing it. I was on a family holiday with my son and my sisters and my brothers and their families. And I remember when my sister told us the place she'd booked for us, she said, the family work with iboga and offer ceremonies. And I thought, okay, I don't need to go there. Like, I'm going for a holiday. I don't want to be doing any deep work, but plenty of work to be doing in my life. I have lots of things I needed to excavate and explore that, maybe I carried as a very heavy weight that nearly felt like I was drowning much of my life. These childhood experiences I had, and other things that I've shared already. So I had this sense of carrying these very heavy weights that I knew was my work, and I was always trying to go there. But, for example, when I'd be asked in therapy, which I've gone to off and on through much of my life, not knowing, why do I struggle? Why do I feel this weight or this pain? I know now, but, and then when I knew, I was like, okay, well, can it just go away now? It's been a long journey to feeling that weight get a little lighter on my shoulders. And my experience with iboga, really brought me to new levels. So I had no intention of doing it anyway. Was invited to a little microdose session with the lovely man who offered the work. He'd spent a lot of time in Africa working with iboga, and just wanted a microdose. He was just teaching us, like, this is what it is, this is what it does, and he had some very beautiful, wise things he shared that, you know, I'd like to share now. One of them, actually, and this is maybe
Mhm.
what made me decide I would take his invitation, that a space was available. Someone had already booked a space for him for a private session for Boga, and there was space for me there if I wanted. And, like I said, I had no intentions of doing this, but as he shared the microdose, it was an invitation to meet with our inner child. And I'd tried to do that numerous times and just never felt I could reach her. Little Courtney, I wanted to hold her hand or comfort her, and she couldn't be found. I couldn't ever envision her or reach her. So during this beautiful meditation he shared with us, I did. I connected with my inner child. And then that felt moving. And I guess the simplicity of this parable, which is something I'm going to slaughter probably, but this is what he shared, and I've heard it in numerous different incarnations. But I also believe this philosophy, this story, this parable to be something that is very real. And once we understand this, I think it does change our lives. It was something along the lines of the story of the boy who comes back to visit his village, and he has a horse, and he's been away for a long time. And as he comes back, the community says, "Oh, this is amazing! This is fantastic! You're back! This is wonderful, incredible!" And he, says, "Oh, we shall see." And everyone's celebrating, and then he falls off his horse. He breaks his leg, and everyone says, "Oh, this is terrible! This is awful!" And he says, "We shall see." Um, then the village is visited by the military, and they're taking everyone off to war, to fight in war, all the young men. And he can't go because of his broken leg. So everyone says, "This is wonderful." And, just the way that we might assign good or badness to situations that happen in life, even when they're painful or difficult. Um, Sometimes the most painful things become the greatest gift. And in times of struggling, I like to bring myself back to that place of, this feels really hard right now. This isn't what I wanted to happen. But to come back to embracing and trusting that even if this isn't what I chose, perhaps this is the best thing for me, and that's going to become apparent. So the ability to trust in that, whatever's happening, and not catastrophize or make it amazing or terrible. That's one thing. And I really love that story. He shared that. And there was also maybe a reflection of, in every moment we can choose yes or no, good or bad. Every moment we have that power. And he shared that with a little more depth, but it moved me so much. And I thought, this is someone I could work with.
Mm.
So I was invited to this ceremony held by me and someone helping him out, an indigenous man who helped sit through the ceremony. And it was myself and this American man who'd booked in. And we sat in a circle in the evening, probably 9 or 10 p.m., with a little fire. We were staying in an apartment. I was told I'd probably be there for 3 or 4 days. At my own room. And we started listening to the iboga music, which was so challenging for me. I was like, "Oh my God, stop that noise." I could listen for a while, actually, but it was then so then we passed around the iboga and spoonfuls of raw powdered root, and maybe a tablespoon at a time. And I had I knew now what he told me about iboga, but I still didn't know this was the most powerful psychedelic in the world.
Mm.
And I'd only taken a microdose, which I didn't perceive anything. So I had no idea about dosages or anything. And I think I took either 3 or 4 tablespoons, which for me was a very lot. I should not have taken the last one, but I hadn't yet felt anything coming up. So I thought, oh, I'll just have another one.
Classic. Yeah.
Oh my God. So I was walked to my room, which was this very comfortable, simple room in darkness. I had a single bed. I felt safe. I felt very safe with these two men and then the other man who was in his space. I didn't leave that room for 3 days, and I
Whoa.
vomited more than I've ever vomited, which is, you know what I mean when I said I was brought to the brinks of life and death. Like it was probably very dangerous, the level with which I was purging. I do remember being so far in another dimension that there was a choice at one point, you know, did I want to cross the line and pass into the other world, or did I want to stay here? And I have a very, you know, I wanted to be here in the world, and I made that
Mm,
conscious decision.
mm.
I think that if I'd chosen the other one, that would have happened.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a common thread you hear about iboga, apparently, that it brings you to the place you can choose to die or something. Yeah, maybe it doesn't feel like dying in that moment where you are, but
yeah.
yeah.
I really feel like I was invited. If I wanted to let go and pass, I would have.
Mm,
And of course, I think for this work, any of this work, you know, we might have an intention. My intention was this heavy weight that I carried of childhood sexual abuse and other things that felt like they were drowning me. I could never let them down or go as much as I wanted. You know, I just go, "Oh, please, can I just let this go now? Haven't I done enough work?" But I was really loath. I wrote it down. We were invited to write down our intention, but then he asked, "Did I want to share it?" And I was like, "This is the taboo thing I never say."
mm.
I didn't know how I felt about sharing that. So he said, "Listen, you don't have to share it with me, but it would help us." You know, this was alone. I was in my iboga state in my room, and I was visited by, maybe I'll call him sometimes. His name was. Um, he would come in from time to time. I had no sense of time. You know, I was floating around in somewhere like space. And from time to time, I would be comforted through my vomiting sessions. Um,
By
I mean, and by the other man whose name I can't remember.
mm,
Uh, and I vomited for so long. I purged for so long. And he said, "You know, not everyone purges. Do you feel you need to suffer? Do you feel you have to suffer so deeply?" And actually that was really confronting. I was like, I'm not trying, but actually there was a lot of medicine in those words, because I think I did felt I deserved to suffer. I I think I felt that all my life almost, and often if there was two decisions to make, I'd choose the suffering one. So maybe on some level that was valid, you know? Um, what happened when met me in the room and asked me to share my story? He could tell that it was too I didn't know how to share that. He said, "Let me tell you, would you like to hear my story?" And the story he shared with me then, there is no trauma that trumps everyone else's trauma, right? Whatever we feel that is our trauma, our pain, our broken places is our own, and that's very real to each of us, right? So I don't really subscribe to the fact that someone's might be more or less than someone else's, but what he shared with me blew my mind. So he shared this story that, you know, he doesn't teach outwardly or publicly, so I'm not breaking any confidences. Like, I don't even think anyone would be able to find him by Googling him.
mm,
So I feel that this is fair to share. But his sharing of this allowed me to go there with sharing my pain and saying that out loud, and allowed me to then move on to doing the work. He had the right questions to ask me. But let me just be brief, because this man who I saw is so wise and so generous in his desire to share this medicine with people, to me kind of shined in this beautiful light of openness. But he told me that his life began. Um, his mother gave birth to him and immediately set this newborn baby's body beside her head and got a shotgun and ended her life and intended to end his. This is how his life.
Jesus. Okay. Yeah.
And then he survived, and he was raised by his very abusive father. And life got harder and harder. Lots of abuse, lots of all kinds of abuse. And drugs and, all kinds of abuse, all kinds of tough life. And he made his way as a young teenager all the way from Mexico to Canada and found a new family as like a very young boy. Made that journey somehow to find a new life. And, his troubles didn't just disappear, but he still was plagued by drug abuse and other kinds of physical and sexual abuse that he experienced. And I guess through the generosity of him sharing such a challenging story with me, it invited me to in turn share what for me felt like something. It's corrosive to hold something inside, isn't it? It's very corrosive to hold a story, a painful story, and feel that it's too taboo to say or share. And it's all too common, really regretfully, way too common of a story in this world. I know I'm not alone in that. Unfortunately, I know hundreds of people who've experienced young childhood sexual abuse. And that within many other terrible things that happen in this world that are painful or they shouldn't happen, they do. But for me, I would have loved to have said, oh, I was beaten, or my parents were alcoholics, or something that was more external and not so vulnerable and painful to share. So holding it in was eating me from the inside, that being the thing that couldn't be said. So when he shared his story and I shared mine in turn, I really felt he heard me. And also, what I believe a healer is, my definition of a healer, is someone who has done that work on themselves. They've healed themselves and they inspire others to do the work to heal themselves. I don't see it as someone who puts their hands on you and you are now healed, but maybe that happens also. But the healers I've experienced in my lifetime have been people who have also lived these challenging things and found their way to well-being and wholeness and can then inspire others to do the same. So for me to hear this person share the depth of that, can't imagine a harder start in life.
Yeah.
And then to see him shining and that he's done his work, it was so inspirational to me. And so for those 3 days, I was on another planet of consciousness. And then after I did share what was my wound that I wished to heal, he came in and out of my consciousness with questions or prompts or, ask iboga to tell you why that was the best thing that's ever happened to you. That was the question that I was most asked. Why was this thing you consider so painful the best thing that's ever happened to you? And my head was broken. My brain was breaking as I was going, what? I can't. Maybe it was then that he shared his story, actually, because I was thinking, that's not possible. My brain can't go there. How could this be a good thing? Broke my brain asking that question over and over. But I got there. I think it was, I was in such a different time and space. There was no time. But as I asked this question over and over, and that music was going, that music that I was just like breaking my brain open, which is what it's maybe meant to do, right? Discordant beats and noise. The iboga music is not what I'd love to listen to. And in that kind of state, I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip it out of my head. It wasn't a pleasant experience. I felt like it was breaking my head open, my mind open. The music didn't stop. I was begging, vomiting, and the music and the noise, and it was painful. And then asking myself these questions over and over that I couldn't find an answer to, and I just thought there's no answer to this. Eventually, I got to this place where I could think of two answers. Another question maybe was, another way of saying that same question maybe was, if we believe in souls, why did my soul choose that life? Which may be another way of asking the same question. So as I pondered those two questions, I found answers to them, two in particular. So one of them was my son. I was thinking, for him, I would take this hit. If we were souls, if we were stars up in the sky, say, and we needed to come into this earthly form, and I would put myself forward to take this start in my life. things I consider were painful or regrettable, or the lack of support I felt, or how alone I felt, I would take that start so that you wouldn't have it. I would definitely. There's maybe many parents would relate with that, or for others that you'd kind of go, if I could take your pain, I would. And I felt that through every part of my being, that if my soul were choosing, it would have said, fuck, I'll go. Yeah, I'll take it. And then the other part that was maybe the more moving part was, yeah, feeling the depth of this pain that often isn't unfamiliar for me in psychedelics. If I take mushrooms, I don't always go to happy places. I go to this deepest, darkest, most painful thing, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I know that, yeah.
So the question was, I would have chosen this path. I would have chosen this life and this start in my life for the fact that, like, or anyone I know that's inspires me with their healing, that I can understand pain. I can understand painful stories. I can understand neglect, regret, grief. I can understand these feelings so deeply. Pain. My divorce was happening at the same time. I was deeply in pain about that. I was feeling so much depth of pain, which I'd carried so much of my life, that I was grateful that while those things are painful, they've given me an ability to empathize and connect with others, and therefore perhaps inspire them to their healing too. And I've never set out to be a curandera or a healer. It's not in my lineage or it wasn't something I was reaching out for. But as I have had experiences around the world, especially in Ecuador in the Andes Mountains or other places where these experiences came to me, this man in the Andes Mountains, this Ayacha curandero, a different story, which I probably don't have time to tell these stories, but he initiated me into a
For who
curandera.
wouldn't you have time? I mean, I would have time for that.
Well, I don't know if we have time, or if there,
Yeah, I would love to hear that.
or if it's like, I guess I feel self-conscious. Am I talking too much? Do you want to hear
You're a
this?
guest on the podcast, so I would love you to tell. But I do have a question, if it's okay for
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
to go on a break soon, because my bladder is talking to me. But before we do that, I just want to kind of acknowledge that what you shared, I think you said earlier, it's difficult to put it in words. And maybe to honor that, yeah, you have expressed words, but you cannot capture the fact that probably what happened for you was extremely deep, and like all the cells in your body change frequency, or whatever, however poetically you want to put it. It cannot be, it sounds like such, if you can shift that, your relationship to that kind of trauma, yeah, that is, I don't know what would be a better definition of healing than that. So that sounds just, yeah, I don't know what the word would be. Amazing sounds a little bit strange, but just, yeah, beautiful maybe.
Yeah, and I think, this is new for me, but it to me is also an important part. I've gone to so many different kinds of healing or talk modalities, and yes, there's a real vulnerability in me sharing the realness of this, and perhaps I wonder if I am downplaying or passing it over really quickly. I can say it's painful, but of course I'm not going into the depths of the ways, like you've said, that it absolutely changed the chemistry of my body and the cells in my body to have had these experiences. And maybe I speak with a smile on my face, or yeah, it's still new for me to share something so vulnerable.
Yeah.
But also I do it because, well, like I said, the people who have inspired me share these things. And I think it's important that I share it when I am in a place that I'm much stronger in it. I don't think it would have been a right place to have shared through much of my life when it was so heavy it drowned me, but that I have a new relationship with it, and I was able to get to this place that I aspired to for so many years of my life, that I was just feeling drowning under this grief and pain and sorrow of words I didn't have. The pain for that is really real. And thank you for saying that, because I think that it's still new for me to say. And yeah, that's all real. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, that could probably be talked about at depth for hours, and then still we would have barely scratched the surface of such an experience, because it's actually a lifetime that you're talking about. Would you be okay for taking a small break, because I do feel my bladder, and then shall we
Yeah, of
take
course.
5 minutes or something? I'll make a coffee, go to the toilet, stuff like that.
Perfect. Okay. I tended to my fire. Got a lovely wood
Oh,
burning
nice.
here.
Yeah.
I love just the simple daily practices of living in a tiny home and
Yeah.
these simple chores. But to me, a wood burning fire is like the most comforting ritual ever.
Same. Talk about fire and ayahuasca stuff. I've done several multi-day ayahuasca workshops slash ceremonies slash retreats.
Mhm.
I mean, undertaken. And I, like you, I'm typically, I just have bad trips all the time. That's my spiritual practice. If I take psychedelics, is having bad trips.
Mhm.
And also then the beautiful other side of them almost always, or at least a part of it. But I was once in a 5-day retreat in the Netherlands with a really good organization, and Rini also is on my podcast, and Susanna, who was my assistant in that one. Well, not in that one, but anyway, um, I was also assisting often, because you get a little discount. You have some stuff to do in the meantime, and in that workshop, I was also in charge of making the fires and keeping them going. It was really cool and very honorable, and I love making fires. And that was so hard. I won't make this podcast about me, but what I wanted to share is that the fire is also like a teacher, an enormously important teacher, and it makes me feel safe. So yeah, anyway, I love fires as well. And is it that you also had this story about Ecuador that you wanted to share? Or
Yeah. Yeah, I
yeah,
think it's a gorgeous story.
yeah,
And I
please, yeah,
kind of felt this like, oh, how will I ever tell this story? Like I'd love to share it, but yeah, I guess I'm conscious of time. I just want to check in with you. Do we have
yeah. So for me, I
and
booked kind of 2 hours. So for me, if we go until the next hour, that would be totally fine still. Yeah.
oh, yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, I'm free.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah. I would quite like to share this story, and then I've always wondered in what way I could. So it's a nice invitation now to share it with you, and I think you'd be interested. It's um yeah, I'll share. I was in February 2020, so just before COVID lockdown, everything. I went to Ecuador to the Amazon jungle with this woman, curandera, I had met, who was very moving to me and very fascinating to me. I met her at Herb Feast. We were both speakers at this herbal medicine conference. And so she shared at that conference that she was an ayahuasquera and a curandera, and that she was going to be hosting this event in Ecuador the following year. Yeah, well, this was in 2019. So in 2020, I joined her for that trip to the Amazon jungle. And her name is Rocio Arlacon, and she has a retreat center and a kind of in this space right next to Yasuni National Park. And she was able to purchase through these events in Ecuador and in her work to kind of buy this bit of land in the rainforest that was under threat. Even though Yasuni National Park is meant to be protected, deforestation and gold prospecting and oil mining were quickly devastating the area. And the native people had nowhere to go. There were some, she was kind of creating this safe space, this haven in her space where these warring tribes could come, especially the women.
Hmm.
And when I went on this trip, before meeting her, I went early and I went to a different part of the rainforest. Another experience happened to me, and I was invited to this luxury lodge, and with I was hoping I could do something mushroom related when I was there. I got invited. Alan Rockefeller, who you might not know, but he's one of the biggest names in mycology
Hmm.
and amazing macro photography of mushrooms. He was there looking for psilocybe, magic mushrooms, and cordyceps zombie fungus in the Amazon jungle, and I got invited through Instagram to come join. And so in this part of the rainforest where my story first started, it was the pristine, untouched, absolutely gorgeous rainforest. And I highly recommend, if anyone wants some tips of where to stay, this place I went to was absolutely magical. And I later made my way to this jungle gathering in a different part near Yasuni National Park, where I was meeting Rocio and all the others. And this was the devastated part of the rainforest that we read about and hear about, that we know is happening, but seeing it with your own eyes is very shocking. And it was like the end of the world. You know, big black tubes of oil sucking from the earth, and, you know, the very real experiences of these indigenous people of being tricked and conned into selling their land for peanuts, for jokes, for an iPad, or for you know, something ridiculous. And maybe what I saw was they would often become addicted to alcohol or drugs, and then these gold companies or other mining companies could steal their land or sell it to them for nothing. Buy it from them for nothing. So I was seeing this with my eyes, and it was devastating. It was like, oh my God, I'm at the end of the world here. So this place that Rocio had purchased was meant to preserve this little bit of magic rainforest. And we got to meet tribes that were nearly untouched, or, you know, uncontacted tribes, these Warani people. And the reason why we met them, because it's not recommended to meet uncontacted tribes, was they were losing all their land so fast they had no choice but to start to relate to other people. And so in her space, they'd come from time to time, and she spoke many different indigenous languages, but these people had their own, of course, because they were uncontacted previously. So we got to meet these ancient people, like incredible, but incredibly sad. You know, also the evangelist Christians were there. So it was really this jarring juxtaposition of these very wild people. I've never met more wild people. I mean, I was so fortunate. I think that if we were National Geographic, we might not have had experiences like this of meeting these truly wild tribes. But then they were like maybe wearing a Mickey Mouse t-shirt or something sometimes, because they'd been starting to be told that their nudity was sinful. So there was this strange juxtaposition of these wild people. We danced with them, we laughed with them. And Rocio was as taken with me as I was with her, and I speak Spanish. And this crazy situation happened where I'm actually getting off to another story, but I'll continue as I go to set the background. Rocio was transfixed by my knowledge of wild food and mushrooms and food. So she was telling this tribesman, this young boy who was maybe 20, young man who was 25 maybe. He wasn't the leader because it was a matriarchy. Tepa was about 100 years old. She was this very capable, incredible woman who was like the matriarch, and this was her grandson, but he was kind of the speaker. He was learning to speak some Spanish. So she introduced me by saying, Courtney's amazing. Oh my God, she's magic with food. And little beknownst to us, he had been feeling he couldn't find an appropriate wife because none of them cooked good enough food. And so I had this crazy situation where in Spanish, I call myself Claudia because Courtney is impossible to say, where this man came to the gates of this place at like 4 a.m. and asking for Claudia. And everyone was like, who's Claudia? We don't have a Claudia here. But Rocio knew that was me, and she met him, and she said, she woke me up at 4 a.m. saying, this is an emergency. This is terrible. We have to, Reishi, come over here. Here, give me that. We have to, I think I've misrepresented you. I think he thinks you're available. And these wild tribes people, they steal their wives. You know, they don't ask. They might shoot them with a little dart, a poison arrow, and they take their wives. And, I'm ancient. Even then, for this young man, he didn't know how old I was. So I met him at the gate, and he'd made me this beautiful crown that perfectly fit my head out of palm fibers. And I said to him, like, I exaggerated. I said I was a grandmother, so, that I'm married and that I have children and that my children are having children. Like, because he was so shocked, he thought I was his age. And I had this really just, as the next 2 weeks that we were there, kind of, we all felt these eyeballs on us. We were like, oh. So I had this like alternate reality of imagining this world in which I had been kidnapped away to be how disappointed he might have been at my cooking skills in the middle of the Amazon jungle. But it was a funny alternate reality that could have happened. And while we were there then, in those subsequent 2 weeks, we all developed very severe food poisoning or water poisoning. I don't know what happened. The people who were there with me, maybe there was 12 of us. We all fell one by one, and some were vomiting blood, and it was quite serious. Whether this was, whatever way we got contaminated, we all got very sick. I held out the longest, like I was kind of not so bad until we were just leaving. And I decided that I had been in Ecuador when I first left my home when I was, I moved out of my family home when I was 16, and then I left that country that I was born in when I was 18, and I went to Ecuador first. So I had this memory of 20 some years before having been in Ecuador, and I was so taken with this village high up in the Andes Mountains, Otavalo, and I wanted to go back. So I was leaving the jungle. We all went back to Quito, and then from there I was taking a bus all the way up to the mountains, and I started getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and luckily booked myself into a very comfortable B&B because I didn't leave the bed then for, I don't know, 12 days, something like that. And I think the family there were very concerned. Who's this gringa who came and, hasn't left bed, hasn't eaten food? I was fasting. I knew that I would be okay. I was taking liquids, but I couldn't bear eating. I was very unwell. And I had this friend who I was still in touch with who I had met when I was 18. He said, I know you're into that shamanic stuff. I used to dabble in it a bit, so I know some people. He said, there's a man in a village, 2 villages over from where you are. Why don't you, there's no contact details or phone numbers. So he gave me a shopping list. It was 12 roses, a dozen eggs, cigarettes, perfume, maybe a few other things. I was too sick to leave the bed, so I asked the woman of the house, would she go and buy me these things from the market? She looked at the list and she said, I don't believe in this shamanic stuff, but I'll get it for you.
She knew immediately that it was a shamanic shopping list.
Yeah. So she got me, I gave her $20, and she went to the market and brought me all these things. And I had a driver friend who had brought me there, this young man who was a taxi driver. So I called him and I said, we have to go to this village. We have to look for this man. I only had his name and no address. And he said, be sure you get the father, not the son, because they have the same name. So one morning, on a Saturday morning, maybe at 7 a.m., he picked me up, and I had my bag of all my shopping list. And we drove to the village and we asked around. And I was dropped off the doorstep of this house that was made from concrete blocks. And it was maybe very rustic and simple, but probably the fanciest one in the village. It was quite high and garish colors. And I walked around the back because there wasn't a door in the front. I walked through the back garden and I was greeted by a group of maybe 5 or 6 people that were campesinos in the truest sense. They were very, very, very rural people who looked like they'd walked for days to get here. And they were kind of in family units. They might have come with their families, usually, it seemed, and they had like a plastic bag. Maybe they didn't have my shopping list. They had a plastic bag maybe with some clothes and food. And they were so rural. And they were fascinated, like, who was I to be coming here? They were all staring at me. And like everyone asked me on my trip, where's your husband? Who are you? What age are you? And the same questions. But it's always like, where's your husband? Why are you here alone?
Yeah.
I was chatting to these people then, and I said, what's the story? You know, who's this person? And they were like, oh, you've missed it. He's already been out and he's given away the tokens for the day. But so I didn't even know who I was going to or what I was going to. I just showed up. I was so sick. I hadn't left bed, like I said, for so long. I was very dizzy and very weak. But they said, well, he's coming out at 10 o'clock again, so maybe you can try and talk to him at 10. And I knocked on, he appeared at 10, and, you know, I don't think there was many people like me showing up at his back door. So he was looking at me kind of fascinated and confused. And I had mentioned my friend's name in Quito, who had given me his number. And he saw my bag of roses and cigarettes. And he said, okay, here's a ticket. You can come back at 4 o'clock and I'll see you. And so I called my taxi friend. We went back to Otavalo. It was this beautiful market village way up high in the mountains. And they had on Saturdays, it was a big, huge market. I'm very lucky I didn't faint on the streets, because there was a few times I had to lay down where I was. I was so weak. I went back at 4 o'clock and it was getting dark. You're high up in the mountains. It was very cold. And there was new people there sitting now. And this new woman, she was like, gorgeous, gorgeous woman. She was like, come sit next to me, come sit next to me. And she was full of joy and beauty. And she was like, I got a place too. I'm also going to see him. And I was like, but who is he? Like, what are we going to do in there? She was like, I don't know. But I'm here with my sons. And, you know, so she was
don't know.
Yeah, nobody knew. I had no idea. And when I finally, I don't know what time it was, 6 or 7 at night, it was dark, it was very cold. I got called in. And I arrived to this dark kind of cellar space. It felt like a cellar, because again, it was concrete blocks, I think. There was a table in front of me as I walked in that was filled with bones and skulls and feathers and crystals. And the curandero, actually in Quechua it's called ayacha, is the word for a curandero. He was there and his wife was there. And she supported him during the ceremony. So he said, first of all, like, and also I was asking people, like, what's it going to cost? Like, and I was very prepared that as a gringa, I could be charged much more. But nobody knew anything. And I think someone told me, oh, it's about $20 or something. But I didn't even know what I was going in for. So when I walked in, he asked me, would I like a candle reading? And I said, sure. You know, and I said, by the way, how much does it cost? He's like, oh, it's $1.50. So sat down and he lit this candle at this table full of bones and skulls and feathers. And he said some things that were very moving to me that, you know, were like, they resonated with me. They were like, something he said along the lines of, you're a woman of nature. You're very connected to the earth. He started calling me a curandera. And I was like, I don't call myself that. And it's never something I've to be. He said, I am a curandero, and I see here that I'm meant to mentor you. I'm meant to initiate you. And I can see that, you know, he referred to my husband who, like I said, this was just as we were divorcing. It was painful. I don't know. He referred to a few specific things about me not knowing anything about me, and he was right. And then he said, I want to initiate you. Are you willing? And I said, okay. Didn't know what was involved. Now, the next part of the story sounds a bit mad, right? I mean, this could easily have been a serial killer. This could easily, I don't think he was a serial killer now, but like he said, okay, well, what I need you to do now is take off all your clothes and go stand in the middle of this circle. And he had a circle of candles on the floor, a circle of fire. And I looked over to the wife like in shock, because Ecuadorians are very conservative. Nudity isn't something you see much. I didn't know why I was being asked that. And I was like to the wife, I said, are you going to be in the room? I said, I'm actually not wearing any underwear because it's fucking hot. And so I was like, be totally naked if I do this. And then the wife said, I'll be here, don't worry. And she stood in the corner with the drum. Hey, my dog's here being distracting. Here, stop it, Reishi. No ball. No, leave it. Here, back here. That'll do. Sorry.
Little cameo. No, that's fine.
So the invitation was to take off all my clothes. And I checked in with the wife and I was like, And I was very self-conscious. I had no underwear on. So I was like,
And
okay.
and in this point, was it just you and them, or this other
Me.
lady?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, the lady's still waiting outside for her turn.
Okay. Yeah.
I would have liked it if she was there because she was like my friend then, and she was so giggly and motherly. She was lovely. So I was alone, and I had no idea what everyone else before me had been doing, and I just thought, okay, maybe this is the thing. Luckily, it was grand. It was fine. But what happened next, it feels like a fantasy or a dream, and it feels like I must be making this up. So that's why I love to share this story, because I never envisioned that what would happen next happened. So he's initiating me into being a curandera. He says this is what the candle has told him. And he's quite a modern dressed ayacha. He's wearing jeans and like a bolero. He speaks, actually, by the way, he speaks almost no Spanish. He speaks very, very childlike Spanish because his language is Quechua. So he was saying things to me, maybe speaking like a child, and it was beautiful. I could understand him. So I stood in the center, took off my clothes, and I stood in the center of this circle of fire. And he had the roses and the cigarettes and the cologne and all these different things, eggs. And he starts, I had been learning how to do an egg limpia ceremony when I was in the jungle with Rocio. So it's like, the idea is quite beautiful that a seed or an egg, are you familiar with this maybe?
Well, egg limpia is the Spanish for egg wash, I guess.
Or cleansing.
I'm not familiar with the practice, cleansing, yeah.
Limpia is like a cleansing maybe. So a cleansing ceremony, and it could be done with eggs. We also learned with fire, and we also learned with seeds, but eggs and seeds in particular, from the shamanic practices I learned from Rocio, hold this as yet unrealized potential of life and the power of this kind of not yet manifested power, not yet born. And so the kind of what we learned was, there was this tradition of using an egg to cleanse someone's energy. So we'd been practicing this on each other and on ourselves in the jungle. And we used an egg, and we would kind of cleanse ourselves with smoke and with this egg. And then you went to bury this egg in the garden and leave that energy back to the earth. And so when I was very excited when he picked up my eggs, and he was holding it probably wasn't a dozen, it was probably 6. He was holding 3 eggs in each hand and superpower egg limpia me with these eggs. So first he probably blew smoke on me with the cigarettes. Then he took the egg ceremony, did the egg limpia, and then his wife took the eggs away and buried them, I suppose. And then he took the roses and he started really violently smashing and ripping off all the petals. And he dumped the cologne all over the rose petals. And he said, here, I want you now to cleanse yourself with these petals. And I remember being a little too eager. So first kind of went straight to my face. And then this nasty ass cheap cologne got in my eyes. I was blinded. And I just take the roses and wash my body from the top down to the bottom with these rose petals. And then he took some alcohol, which I'd also brought. And as he's doing this to me, though, he's saying the most beautiful. I was really worried it might be very God orientated, and I don't connect with the word God as much as Mother Earth is my God. Nature is my God. It's like life force. I don't really believe in a God otherwise, in the traditional sense. And my experience in Ecuador was a lot of people were very religious and Catholic and been converted. So I was worried that he might have this very God language to be imparting, but no, he spoke my language, and he was saying, as he's blowing smoke and limpia, and there's the drumming in the corner, and there's the fire, he's whispering these beautiful incantations of blessings to me, that I am one with nature, I'm one with the world, I will help people heal, I was beautiful, I was strong, I was powerful. But just these beautiful little blessings, and again in this childlike Spanish, so it was very moving and beautiful. And so he's cleansing my energy, and then what happens next is he starts taking a drink of the liqueur and spitting it at me and lighting it on fire. So these fireballs, he starts I'm quite dizzy. I told him I'd been so sick. He said, "I want you to spin in circles," and he's blowing fireballs at my body. And the drum beats in the corner, and I'm spinning in circles, and I'm covered in rose petals and smoke, and fireballs are literally coming at my body, like just before me, and kind of disappearing. Then it was otherworldly. It was amazing. And he's whispering these beautiful incantations, and then it's finished. And then he says, "Well, you won't be sick anymore, and you can come back to me anytime you want. I'm your teacher. In fact, if you want to bring me to Ireland, please do, please do. Here's get my son's number." And then I was pushed out the front door, and I remember just being like, "What just happened?" That was amazing, and I didn't feel sick anymore. I wasn't dizzy. I wasn't weak. From that day forward, then I was back to my full strength, and it was just so unexpected. I didn't know what I was going to. I wasn't looking for it. It came to me almost, and it was such just a beautiful memory that I haven't ever yet found the words to share with anyone. So thank you for listening.
Mm. Yeah, I find it. I notice I'm touched by the story, and what comes to me is that you shared your childhood experiences, then you're asked to strip naked, and I sometimes have this fear of people being bad, but
Mm,
then I'm so happy when people are good,
yeah.
and I'm so happy, and it's beautiful, it's touching, and one of the questions I had in the to kind of prepare for our talk is like, do you see yourself as a druid? Do you see yourself as a witch? But maybe you're a curandera. I'm not sure if you relate to any of
Maybe all
those
those
words,
things are
but
the same thing, right? They're just different
yeah,
traditions. So yeah, I don't subscribe to any one tradition. I think though,
yeah,
like I said, if my definition of a healer is what I'm saying, if my journey has brought me to a place where I feel more healed and that later inspires anyone, then that is a healer for me. That's my
yeah,
definition. And
yeah,
wasn't something I was seeking. But yeah, that to me
mm,
is a very so I wouldn't give myself any of those labels, but
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
What a story! And have you ever spoken to him again, or do you plan to?
No, I haven't. I had his son's email address and yeah, I'd like to reach out. Wonder
What
if
is
he
his
remembers.
name? Can you repeat it, please?
No, I don't have his
Oh, you
name.
did.
I could get it. I could get it, but it was like, yeah, I don't remember his name. And my friend Mauro in Quito sent me that. And remember, I was delirious with sickness, so
Mm,
I don't have his name now, but I'm sure it's in my WhatsApp or Mauro could tell me.
yeah.
Mm,
Holy shit! What a story. Yeah, that's really cool.
yeah.
How is it now that you told it? Because you never found the word. Do you feel that this was it? This was the story, or?
Yeah, just I guess these experiences all add up, right? They're all one by one. Like, and I've traveled a lot. I've been very fortunate. I've seen a lot of the world, and some experiences you kind of hold as like you maybe collect them like precious stones. When I go to the beach, I can't help. I come home with my pockets full of rocks, and I think that life is this collection of what memories stand out most. And I guess in the case of the iboga story and this one, in neither case was I looking for this experience. In fact, I kind of was saying, actually, I don't want to do any more of this work.
Mhm.
But I'm really glad I showed up for it and that I was vulnerable and strong and that it did turn out well, because there are stories for whom this doesn't turn out. I do feel I have a good sense of intuition now, and I have, that's honed through the times I made very bad experiences. And sometimes traveling from such a young age, I was very vulnerable. I did make stupid decisions, and I was very lucky that I didn't run into more kind of dangerous situations. But the beauty that I feel through my experiences traveling is that I'm left with this sensation that actually most people are good. And that's really good to remember in times like now.
Mm,
The world
yeah,
is really, really scary right now. And I am a little bit paralyzed by what I'm reading and seeing, the onslaught of this kind of war in Iran
yeah,
and against
yeah,
truth and war and genocides and all of these, what is real
yeah,
anymore. So I do love coming back to that. I really do believe that most of us are very good people.
yeah. I think so too. Yeah, yeah. I was once. I'm sometimes a bit distrusting, actually. Unfortunately, That's my trauma that's still sometimes playing a little bit. And I remember, just to mention my friend Martijn again, we used to go on bro walks together. We called them bro walks. We'd smoke a joint and we'd talk about life and pretty deep stuff. And he was kind of my first teacher in a way, a spiritual friend, teacher, guide. And we were in the tram, and for some reason I wanted to ask something to the tram conductor, and the specifics I forget a bit, but he said something like, "Yeah, you can trust them." The way he said it, you can trust them. And he also spoke about Native American, our Native American brothers, let's say, and sisters. And he said something like that. Yeah, they look to us as like we are their crazy little cousins because we've lost our way a bit. And if you talk about war and what's in the news, it's just complete insanity. So I would even suggest let's not go there right now.
Yeah,
We're
let's
with this
not.
beautiful, let's stay in sanity and let's
Well,
stay
I'm
in
really happy
connection.
that's that line though that we could end it on though. That sense of the, yes, we all have to have a little bit of a healthy skepticism, and you can
Yeah,
be too open like I used to be, but that ultimately there's this sense I feel very strongly and believe that there is goodness in almost all of us, and
yeah,
there's a few very dark ones, but most of us are
yeah,
very good.
yeah.
So
I
I,
totally agree.
mm.
Yeah, that feels kind of like a natural end. It's almost it's such a full conversation already with amazing stories, and hopefully for you a bit different than what you are normally doing.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I just want to thank you for these amazing stories. I was really I was just tuned into that. So thanks a lot. You know, And I just wanted to check because I did see on your website that you are mentoring people one-on-one. I know you have workshops, you have courses. I think you're super busy. But is there anything that people can still sign up for or that can look out for?
Yeah, I'm just kind of I have taken a good pause over this winter. I needed to recharge, and I find that hosting events and teaching workshops, I really want to feel that I'm at my very top best. I do get the winter blues sometimes a bit, so I've been kind of building myself up over the winter, and I'm just about to launch a few new projects, and yeah, maybe offering my work in a new way, which to me feels very exciting. I have been so fortunate that since I've started teaching, I've been so kind of felt a sense of abundance from the participants, maybe people flying in from other countries, which sometimes feels really daunting that people make that much effort sometimes to come. And I'm really grateful for that. But I have this almost a mourning that I don't get to really relate very deeply with people, especially if it's a one-day workshop and there's a big group of people. So I've been feeling very called to offer my work in a new way and invite people to learn with me through the year. And instead of doing once-off events, I might start transitioning into offering more. I'd love to teach people with much more depth. I'd love to put into practice through the year and through the seasons and with many different kind of plant and mushroom allies to work with people. So I've just been kind of putting the shape on that, and I'll be launching that soon. And for anyone who would like to work with me on a one-to-one basis, there's a few different formats on my website, which is hipsandhaws.com. And you can kind of connect with me, and really honored to also offer my work in that way for people who do live in other places maybe that can't come attend workshops. Maybe they have young children. So I have had many people approach me for that kind of mentoring as well.
Yeah. And so, of course, the links are, as always, that people are used to in the description and everything. Any last message from your heart to anybody listening? I'd like to give you the last word. Thank you, Courtney.
Uh, I think I'd like to just express my gratitude to knowing you, Hans, and the way that we've been able to connect at so many different levels through time and through these last 6 years. Maybe we're not always regularly in touch, but it's very moving, and I'm very grateful to know you. And thank you for inviting me to hear my stories, because like I said, it's new for me to share stories like these. Some are vulnerable and scary to share, but also some are beautiful and moving. And um, it was a little bit scary and also exciting to share new things in a way that feels so well received. You're such a nice listener, and yeah, just thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you too, Courtney. Have a great rest of your day.
Okay, thank you, Hans.